lawlessness, not keeping the instruction of our Elohim. Okay? It is our darkened perception that makes it difficult to see Reuben. Our ability to clearly perceive and discern in what we are truly sons, established, and in what we are truly restored. What are we really established in? And what are we counting on to restore us if we can't see what really restores us, what really redeems us, what really delivers us? This is what it is to be in the rebellion of Korah to this point. The Parsha tells us that Korah was not satisfied to do simply what Elohim had appointed him and his family to do. We said it had been given to the children of Kohath to carry the most sacred of the utensils, including the ark. Korah wanted to serve as a priest, which was given to the children of Aaron. It is in this that we can apply our concept to. I've been given a particular calling on my life by my Elohim, but I'm not satisfied with what my Elohim has given me. I want to do something else. I want to do what this person over here is doing, even though I'm not called to that. That's what I want to do because that's so cool. Okay, so this is an idea of what's going on. Yahweh Elohim calls us to a specific task, and we are to do everything we can do to fulfill that calling. This in itself is a major part of keeping the Shema. We say the Shema is, it's not just to hear, it's to perceive, to discern, to understand, to obey, to apply, and to be content in the instruction that our Elohim gives us. When we see ourselves as more than what Elohim has called us to do, we make ourselves Elohim. And here's where we talked about going after another Elohim. We make ourselves Elohim. And in doing this, we break the first 3 commandments. Without first realizing that we have become rebellious and as such spiritually poor, Teshuvah cannot be made. We go back up to on, where we see that we have this concept that we're wealthy. Until we see that we're actually naked, we might have some fig leaves covering us, but we're actually naked. We can't make Teshuvah. What did we talk about last time? That we have to realize that we're in a state of spiritual poverty before we can stop and truly get it and then make Teshuvah. So we're spiritually poor. Teshuvah cannot be made, and it is in this state of being that very quickly sends us spiraling downward, cold and indifferent to Elohim or his instruction, and in a sense, naked without his covering. Paul has a word for this. He calls it a reprobate mind. When we refuse to make Teshuvah, when we refuse to acknowledge that we're in a state of spiritual poverty, when we continue in a state of rebellion, then we continue the spiral down. And what we read in the story as we go, that it was the sand, the desert, that opened up and it swallowed Korah, and his co-conspirators swallowed them alive into Sheol. So we get swallowed up by something that we can't come out of. Okay? Elohim loves peace, and his spirit dwells in peace. Elohim, on the other hand, hates strife, discord, and division in his assembly, in his congregation, calling the one who sows them an abomination. And Proverbs 6 tells us this: there are 6 things which Yahweh hates, yes, 7 which are an abomination unto him: haughty eyes, a lying tongue, and hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked thoughts, feet that are swift in running to evil, a false witness that breathes out lies, and he that sows discord amongst the brethren. Okay? we have some examples of things that, if we have any of these in our lives, we have examples of what we need to work out. Am I doing any of these things? Do I have a problem with any of these things? Because if I do, the Word of Elohim tells me I can make teshuvah and I can start towards the right path. The Parsha of Korach is also called the Parsha of Machlochet, which is strife, since it was Korach that created division, strife, and ultimately disaster within the congregation that through his rebellion and discontent came forth. The name Korach comes from the root korcha, which means to split, means to divide. In this Torah portion, Korach and his co-conspirators accused Moses of hoarding power and being greedy for more. It is, however, this sin that was in reality their own sin. So, how many people in this world are guilty of this type of self-deception? We can point the finger at other people and say, you know, they're so power hungry and blah, 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 when we have to ask, am I being envious? Am I coveting what they have? And because I covet what they have, my heart wants to hate them for it. And we're going to talk about things that destroy, well, things that cause the factions in Judaism to fight each other, and Christians to fight each other, and congregations to fight each other. But these are the things that we learn in this Torah portion. We must realize that people often unknowingly judge others for the very sins that they themselves are committing. Paul had this to say at Romans 2:1. You therefore have no excuse, you who pass judgment on someone else. For at whatever point you judge another, you are condemning yourself, because you who pass judgment do the same things. People at times do not recognize that what they are doing or saying is wrong or hurtful. They have simply justified to themselves that their way is the right way. This, however, doesn't change the fact. This, however, doesn't not change the fact. I don't know, what's that supposed to say? Okay. This, however, doesn't change the fact that it is considered an abomination in the eyes of Yahweh Elohim. To act in this way is considered an abomination in the eyes of Elohim. There is wisdom in being able to see and understand the motivation of one's creating strife before making judgments and issuing condemnation for actions taken or words spoken. Why is this person behaving this way? What's going on in their life? Is there something I should understand about this person? I'm trying to love them instead of passing judgment on them. Right? We all want to go right straight to guns because that's who we are. As mentioned earlier, Elohim calls us and appoints us to the work He requires from us. We do not or should not pick and choose. We read in our story that Elohim Himself had made the priesthood and had outlined the duties of the Levites. Korach and his followers were therefore in rebellion against the authority of Elohim. They weren't rebelling against Moses and against Aaron. They were rebelling against Yahweh Elohim Himself. Are we rebelling against Yahweh Elohim when we do some of the things that we've just talked about? We're not necessarily rebelling against a person or being angry at a person. Are we being angry or rebellious against Elohim Himself if that person is appointed to do what they're doing? Okay, where were we? So, now we read in our story, okay, so as we read earlier, Elohim chose the family of Korach to be caretakers of the tabernacle as well as its structures and its vessels. They were to be servants to the Aaronic priesthood. While all Levites served Elohim, Aaron and his descendants held the special appointment of being able to approach the altar to perform sacrifices. They were able to approach the ark. This is the Kohen Hagadol, the high priest, would enter into the presence of the ark of the covenant. a status that could stir great envy. Thus Moses asked Korah's group, are you seeking the priesthood also? You're not satisfied in just taking care of everything, but you want to be the priest as well. Elohim gives us each a certain amount of something to do. Paul, I'm getting ahead of myself, but Paul breaks it up that we're all part of the body, that we all have something that we have to do within the body. Not everybody is a teacher, just like not everybody's an administrator, not everybody's a pastor, not everybody's, you see what I'm saying, an evangelist?
Right.
You see what I'm saying? That if I'm a teacher, I'm not necessarily cut out to be a pastor, but I can be a great trainer. If I'm a pastor, I'm not necessarily cut out to be a teacher, but I'm a good motivator. But some people want it all. I'm a pastor. I want to teach. I want to be the administrator. I know pastors that pastor. They teach and they administrate, and they look like they're being crushed like a tin can. There's a reason that in the shul you have the rabbi that teaches, and you have the administrator of the shul that takes care of all of the paperwork, and you have the secretary that makes sure that the rabbi is lined out, and then you have all the shamashim that make sure that the building doesn't fall apart. There's a reason that it's set up that way. So anyway, we can't all do everything. Jacob warns us against this sort of self-magnifying ambition, as it brings with it a great evil. And he says in Jacob 3:16, Jacob is James, by the way, for where you have envy and selfish ambition, there you will find disorder and every evil practice. Envy and selfish ambition cause all kinds of trouble in our personal lives, not only at work, but at home as well. They also cause problems in congregations and in fellowships, as those who are neither qualified nor anointed seek positions that Elohim never intended for any of them to occupy. Korah sinned by coveting the more prestigious role of the Aaronic priesthood rather than that of being a Levitical servant. And as a result, Elohim caused him and those who followed him to be swallowed up by the desert sand. This was a reminder to the children of Israel that sowing strife, questioning Elohim's authority, and exalting themselves to positions of leadership that they should not be in, ultimately leads to destruction. Proverbs 6:12-15 sums it up. A base person, a man of iniquity, is he that walks with a rebellious mouth, that winks with his eyes, that scrapes with his feet, and points his fingers. Rebellion is in his heart. He devises evil continuously. He sows discord. Therefore shall his calamity come suddenly. Remember, swiftly. Suddenly, on a sudden, shall he be broken, and that without remedy. Without remedy. What happened to Korah and his group? They were swallowed up by the sand. What happens when we get so reprobate that we can't turn around? Now, is that to say that we can't make teshuvah? Because we've said this. Even Satan, even the Satan, if he were to go before Elohim and say, I have sinned. I really get it. I have totally and completely transgressed. I've screwed everything up. I've screwed everything up from the foundations of creation. Forgive me in the name of Yeshua. And meant it sincerely in his heart. What would Elohim be inclined to do? Forgive. So it's never too late to make teshuvah. But sometimes all we see is those fig leaves. Okay? So, pointing to the negative example of Korah, the rabbis caution that we should not befriend evil people. Proverbs 13:20 counsels that a companion of fools will suffer harm, This is one of the main lessons that we may learn from this Torah portion. Solomon, whose very name comes from the Hebrew word for peace, shalom is the root of Solomon, advises us to find wisdom which prevents us from following wicked, devious people. And in Proverbs 2:12-15, it says, to deliver you from the way of evil, from the men that speak rebellious things, who leave the paths of uprightness, to walk in the ways of darkness, to rejoice to do evil, and delight in the rebelliousness of evil, who are crooked in their ways and perverse in their paths. So we find in the Parsha that Moses told the people of Israel to move away from the tents of Korach, Dathan, and Ephraim, to move all their stuff away from this area so that they wouldn't be destroyed by the residual. There's always residue that hangs around these kind of people, these kind of situations, these kind of negative people. Now, all of this being said, this Parsha doesn't say that we should not minister to those who are caught in sin. We have read that Yeshua ate with and talked to sinners and to social outcasts. He loved them enough to share the Bezorah of Elohim, the message of Elohim, the good news of Elohim, the hope that's found in Elohim. He shared this with them and called them to repent and to set themselves apart to Yahweh Elohim. If Yeshua ministered to these people and we are to be like Yeshua, then we have an obligation to minister to these people as well. And we all do, in one way or another. Frustrating as it may be, we do. Okay? So, he did not, however, allow their desires or their behavior to influence or deter his appointment from Yahweh Elohim. Yeshua did not allow any outside influence to distract him from his calling. Likewise, we should not allow strife, jealousy, or self-magnification to distract us from our position as the children of Yahweh Elohim, or from the calling to which he has appointed us. We must be content with what Elohim has entrusted to us. With Yahweh Elohim as our Father and our friend, we can trust him to meet our social, physical, emotional, and spiritual needs. Now, this is a little something about history that I found interesting. History teaches us about the destructiveness of division. The Jewish historian Josephus recorded that the Jews of his time, in other words, the Jews during the time of the rebellion, fought with each other, doing everything that the Roman besiegers could have desired. They caused more conflict within themselves that allowed them to be conquered, that allowed the city to be taken. Okay? At the time of the invasion of Jerusalem in AD 70, Titus and his Roman legionnaires found no less than 24 different factions fighting amongst themselves, each convinced that only they had the right way to ensure the deliverance of the Jewish people. The destruction of the Second Temple is linked to sinat chinam, which is baseless hatred between two opposing factions. Today, the Jewish people still struggle with division and strife, as do the many denominations of Christianity. We find that animosity and contention rise up between the various sects of Judaism and the many denominations of Christianity. We find that the Christian church is plagued with many thousands of splits and denominational divisions, each one convinced that they have the truth while the others are in error. Strife and division results in splits. A quarrel-ridden congregation or home is doomed to destruction. How can it be otherwise, since a house divided upon itself will not stand? This is something that Yeshua said in both Mark 3:25 and in Matthew 12:25. In our Torah portion, we see that Moses did not exalt himself over Korah. He didn't exalt himself over the others. It was Elohim who raised him up into the position of leading Israel out of Egypt. It was not his own desire to be the leader of Israel. He was a leader of Israel as an act of obedience to Yahweh, who is Elohim. He was not in a position due to self-aggrandizing or self-magnifying or prideful ambition